Hi, I'm Ricky Arundel, the founder of the PSA, and in this video I want to explore the difference between being a trainer and being a speaker. Like a lot of professional speakers, I started my career with a background in training. I'd spent about 10 years as a sales trainer and manager in the financial services industry, and I was invited to speak at a major life insurance sales convention. Now, I thought it was going to be pretty easy till I started to draft my speech. Wow, what a steep learning curve I found myself on. The disciplines of training and speaking are very different, and what I want to do in this video is highlight some of those differences, provide you with a few tips which I hope will help you to make that transition easier and more successful. Now, obviously, the very first easy difference to see between training and speaking is in the numbers. As a trainer, we deal with much smaller numbers of people. Often it's just one-to-one or a few people, maybe 10, 20, 40. My average courses have been about 20. There have been some challenging exceptions to that, but generally when you're running a training course, I found that you're working with individuals. Even though they're in a group, you're still working one-to-one. You answer individual questions and you build that one-to-one relationship with each of the members of the audience. As a speaker, you can't do that. A small audience is 50, a large audience maybe 500, 1,000 or more. So what happens is that we find ourselves working not with individuals but with an audience as an entity, and it takes on a sort of whole personality of its own. It still shocks me when I've worked with different audiences with the same speech that one audience can be responsive, fun, easy to work with. Another audience, same speech, but my God, it's like working through treacle. Really, really hard work. So that's the first difference, is in numbers. The second difference is in the amount of time we have. As a trainer, half a day is a short course. A day, 2 days, maybe a week, maybe even months. So you've got a long period of time over which to build those relationships. You can work on a whole range of different skills and build those step by step. As a speaker, we have very little time indeed. If you're a fan of TED Talks, or you've ever delivered a TED Talk, you'll know 80 minutes, that's all you get no matter who you are. Average keynote speech, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, occasionally an hour, but I've noticed they're tending to be shorter these days. And even when I've got 45 minutes to deliver a keynote, if it's the end of the day, suddenly I find everything's running behind and I'm having to cut mine down to 35 minutes. So we have to make every minute count. If you're speaking when everybody's expecting to be on a break or leaving or having lunch, trust me, no one will be listening to you. So time is very, very different. Now, the similarity between training and speaking is in our objective. We're trying to bring about a change in behavior. But to be honest, that's where the similarity ends. As a trainer, we're working on a training gap. There's an actual performance and there's a desired performance. And we know we've got to get that individual trainee from the actual performance across to the desired performance. And we do that by a whole range of knowledge, attitudes, skills and habits. We show and tell, we observe and correct, we motivate and supervise. And we do that over a long process. As a speaker, we simply don't have that time. We have to deal with a very small change agenda. And at the end of our speech, we can't motivate and supervise and see whether the change takes place. It's up to each individual member of the audience to leave the event with whatever idea, with whatever motivation we've given them, and for them to make the change. Now, the other problem is, as a speaker, you're often just one of a program. You're not the only person delivering messages. So if you try to deliver 2 or 3 key messages in your speech, you're competing with the speakers before you, you're competing with the speakers after you. The chances that members of the audience will remember everything are very limited indeed. What I found is that the most successful speakers in the world use a single message when they're speaking to an audience. They repeat that message in different ways. They tell anecdotes and stories and inspirational stories to help the person to go away, help each member of the audience to go away with some new lesson that they can then add into their life to make a change. So there's the fundamental difference in changing behavior. Now, in order to do that, you have to specialize. When I first went to my first NSA convention back in the 90s, that was probably the most powerful message I got from that convention. That as a successful speaker, you have to specialize, specialize, specialize. As a trainer, in sales training, I dealt with sales, I dealt with marketing, I dealt with customer care, leadership, IT, presentation skills, interview techniques, management supervision, plus a whole range of product knowledge. And as a result of that, I used all sorts of other people's material. I had license to use Zig Ziglar's material, Brian Tracy's material. I used Wilson Learning material. So all of these other tools and other techniques I brought into my training to help me to achieve my objective of changing people's behavior. As a speaker, we can't do that. As a speaker, you have to use original material. And this isn't just about the ethics of the speaking business, saying you don't use other people's material. It's the demands of the meeting planner. They want you as a speaker to get up there and deliver original material. They don't want to hear something that they heard last year or the year before. It's got to be new and it's got to be fresh. It's your unique selling point, your USP. I was at a major sales convention some years ago and I heard a top speaker get up, and in the middle of his speech, he started to tell a story. Now, the moment he started the story, I instantly recognized it. It was one of the signature stories of the late, great Norman Vincent Peale. And as he started to tell his story, I looked around the audience and half the audience had also heard it. Within about 5 minutes, everybody had started, not everybody, but a lot of people had started to leave. 5 minutes is all it took for that speaker to destroy his reputation. You have to use unique material. You cannot use other people's material. And that comes from specialization. And you have to really, really deeply specialize. When we set the PSA up back in 1999, our theme all the time was it's the Professional Speaking Association for experts who speak for a living. And it's that level of expertise. As a financial services trainer, I had a lot of qualifications. I had insurance qualifications, sales qualifications, marketing qualifications. But even with all of that level of expertise across that broad area in financial services, as a speaker, I had to drop most of that away and just focus on one area, one single area where I could become the authority. And I did. I became the technology guru in the financial services industry. It took me about 5 years, but I was very passionate about it. I loved the use of technology. And I wrote articles, I spoke around the industry, I went to conferences, I sat on boards and committees, and I established myself as the technology authority. About 15 years ago, I made a major change in my life. As you can probably tell, I changed my gender. Now, as far as the financial services industry was concerned, this was a major mistake. They simply didn't want to employ somebody who was transgender. It brought my speaking career at the time to an abrupt halt. It meant I had to look around for a new direction and a new field of expertise. I needed to find somewhere where I would be employed because I was transgender rather than not being employed because I was transgender. So off I went to university. I took a master's degree in gender research. I sat on diversity panels. I got involved with the Equality and Human Rights Commission. I spoke all over the place. I wrote articles. And over a period of about 5 years, I established myself once again as an expert, this time as a diversity expert, and particularly with an expertise in gender equality. 5 years is about 10,000 hours. And if you've read or heard of Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, you'll know that that's the time that he says is the average amount of time it takes for anyone to become an expert in any field, to become the authority. So to become an expert, to become established as a speaker, you've got to be thinking in terms of putting in something like that, about 5 years of intense work to get you where you need to be. So, as an authority, the most important thing is then that you you start to build up a library of stories, of images, jokes, anecdotes, various different things, your own experiences. Certainly, I mean, I found, as being transgender, I started to experience being discriminated against. I experienced hate crime and a whole range of things. And other people told me stories, so that this whole thing started to build up. I was able to repurpose information. I discovered, for example, that from my days in marketing training, the whole process of how we encourage someone to want to buy our product is very similar to the way in which society causes us to become unconsciously biased. So I could take information I'd learnt in sales and marketing and now apply that to help people understand the whole process of unconscious bias. I could repurpose other information, turn it into my own unique material rather than the generic material I'd originally learnt. Truly great material comes from focus. The more expert you become, the more you're involved in your industry, the more passionate you are about your particular focused area of expertise, the more you will start to find great material. And a successful speaker needs really great material. It takes time to build that material. It takes about 10,000 hours to become an authority, to become an expert. But once you've established that, that is going to set you up for the rest of your life. It will give you a comfortable career for as long as you need it to. I hope that that has helped you to improve the way in which, or speed up the process by which you can move from training to speaking. And I look forward to seeing you soon.